What's going on? Good morning, good morning. Just back again. Just wanted to share a few things that I'm doing to manage stress and pain while locked down in this whole quarantine. And, these are some things that, stress and pain. Why stress and pain? Because the two actually, I find that they go hand in hand a lot of times. Not always, but a lot of times they do. Like there's a link between the two. And especially now where, the more stress that we take on, especially like if you are somebody who deals with pain, if you just got, your body is always hurting, or you've got kind of the nagging aches and pains that you can't seem to resolve, right? Maybe you've gotten x-rays, your doctor's checked you out and they can't find anything wrong with you. You've tried, stretching and exercise or massage or, whatever, and just things aren't working, right? There's a strong link a lot of times where the more stressed that we feel, like the more stress we take on, the more sensitive that our bodies can become to things like pain. So I wanted to talk about a few things I'm doing here, things that I'm working on with myself and things that I work on with clients as well. And especially during this time, because now more than ever, before this whole COVID thing hit, we are stressed out enough as it is. We are like the only nation really that is working longer hours. We're working harder. We work more often. We spend more time working than we do with our families. And, it's no wonder, like we just have a nation filled with people who are chronically stressed out. And, look at statistically what's going on where, according to the CDC, 50 million adults in the United States struggle with chronic pain every day. So there's clearly a problem going on here. And there actually is a pretty strong link between, like I said, pain and stress. So just, a few things that I'm working on. Like I noticed, like the last couple days, I was noticing like my low back was feeling a lot more stiff than normal. Like I usually feel really good. And I was just noticing, like when I was getting up and from sitting and standing up and moving around, like it would take me a couple minutes to loosen up. My back was feeling stiff, and I was wondering, like, what's this all about? Because it's new. And the funny thing is that, like, I've become really good at understanding when it's a physical thing, meaning that, if I'm feeling stiff because I need to stretch, or, my muscles are tight, like I can understand when it's that, or when it's something that's deeper, that's being driven like mentally or emotionally, and that's one of the big things. So I was dealing with all that. And, for me, like I know like that the low back stuff wasn't a physical thing. Like it hasn't been a physical thing for me. It's been more, dealing with that mental and emotional kind of, that's where it's being driven from. So, what gets interesting with that is that, I could try to foam roll it. I could try to stretch it. I could do exercise and everything for it. But the problem is, like, when it's being driven from a mental emotional standpoint, a trigger that's in there, the physical stuff isn't going to resolve it, right? And that's one of the things. So, if you're dealing with something like that, if especially now, like if you have noticed that your pain symptoms have increased since the COVID pandemic has hit, chances are, like if it's been really tied into that, and I'm not talking about because if you've been doing some kind of physical therapy or chiropractic work, or you take pain medication or something, and now you don't have access to that because the whole quarantine and all that. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about that the onset of symptoms has been, or your sensitivity to the symptoms has increased specifically during this time, right? Over the last 3-4 weeks or so since it's hit. Really paying attention to that, because chances are that it is more driven mentally and emotionally rather than it is physically. And I noticed that's one of the kind of the telltale signs, right? If you try to stretch, if you try to ice it, put heat on it, massage it, exercise it, and that stuff really doesn't improve it, like it really doesn't significantly make a difference, chances are it's being driven from there. So it's, understanding the difference between those two has been, one of the key things right there. I tend to like to work with the physical things first, though, because they're the easiest to get to, right? And I think, for the most part, we respond to that. We can respond to physical modalities to treat pain, right? Physical things that will make us feel better. And then what I look at, like, is if that doesn't work. So if I'm stretching something, or if I'm foam rolling out, or if I'm doing, my training and my symptoms are not getting any better, or serious red flag, if they're getting worse, then I know right there. It's like, now I've got to tackle the deeper issues and start to understand mentally and emotionally what's going on, because it's usually being driven from there. So that's one of the things. The other thing has been, this has been something that I've done, and since I've done it has made a huge difference for me, is directing my first thoughts of the day. So what used to happen, like, I used to deal with depression, and it was like, the Monday morning blues, if you've ever like dealt with that stuff, but it was like clockwork. So every Sunday night I would start to get into this, I would feel my mood would drop. I would start to feel down. My energy would go. And, I was like obsessing about, Monday morning, going back to work, right? And thinking of all the things I had to do. The weekend is over. And for some reason, I would just, by Monday morning, I would be in this funk of depression. It just was like very dark. I didn't a lot of days want to even get out of bed. There were days where I couldn't work. So like, I would just call in and, call off my appointments, cancel my appointments with clients and stuff, because I physically and mentally could not get to a place where I could even concentrate on work. And it was like clockwork. Like every Monday I would go through this. Then like at one point I had didn't know what was going on. I ended up on the phone with like Kaiser talking to a therapist or whatever, and I got diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. This was like 2002. And, it was cool that, okay, great. I kind of have like this diagnosis, right? I've got anxiety. I've got generalized anxiety disorder, but there wasn't a whole lot of understanding, not so much what to do about it. Like they offered classes and everything, but for me, like I wanted to know where it was coming from. So instead of like dealing with the symptoms of it, I wanted to understand what was the cause, what was triggering it, what was behind it. Because I've learned like over the years that when I can get to a cause of stress or of pain or whatever's going on, then when that brings it into my awareness, I could do something about it. Because I'm a big believer that we cannot change anything that we're not aware of. How do you change something when you don't know what's causing it? Like you can't, unless you're just extremely lucky, right? But I don't like relying on luck. So, directing the first thought of the day has become, the one of the most powerful things that I work on. So, every morning when I wake up, instead of just jumping out of bed and getting on with my day, now I'm just taking a few minutes to understand where my thoughts are at. What am I thinking about when I wake up? And just not judging it. Is this good or bad? Oh, I'm thinking this negative thing, or I'm worried about this and I need to stop. I need to focus on being positive and, or repeat positive affirmations. It's nothing like that. It's just bringing into awareness where I'm at to start my day. Where are my thoughts at? What am I thinking about to start my day? Because I used to do that where I'd just hop out of bed, try to get to work, or just get on with my day. And I would find a lot of times, especially on those Mondays when I did get out of bed, I would find that I would be easily frustrated. I would be irritated. My energy was down. My thoughts were kind of scattered. So it took away from me trying to do my work. I couldn't just focus and do my best stuff because I was preoccupied a lot of times with these like thoughts, feelings, emotions I was going through, and I didn't really know what they were. I just noticed like I wasn't myself. So it's been a big changer, like a big game changer for me to understand and direct my first thoughts of the day. Joe, what's going on? Thanks for tuning in, man. Good to see you. So that's been one of the things. The other has been really just like practicing mental and emotional awareness is what I call it. It's the best way I can describe it, where it's one thing to understand early in like the morning or like when you first wake up where you're at. But I noticed that a lot of times I could be doing really well in the morning where I'm feeling good. I feel energized. I'm rested. I'm like ready to take on the day. And then somewhere during the day, I can go into a funk. I could all of a sudden feel frustrated, or I might be like worried about something, or, you know, any host of kind of, you know, what we call like negative emotions that might be going on. And it's not so much that having those feelings or those emotions, but the big thing for me that I really get frustrated is when I don't know why. Like if you've ever had that where you just go into a funk and you don't know why. It's like all of a sudden you're just there and then you don't want to do anything. You know, and I would get to that point sometimes where I'd be like, man, I just like don't want to do anything for the day. I just want to like sit down, close the curtains, you know, put a hood over my head and watch TV and just kind of make the world go away. You know, and those things. So now it's really like, you know, practicing a mental and emotional awareness to where I become very aware and I stay that way. It's always kind of like my awareness is always kind of running, you know, in the background, and being aware where my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions, where they are at all times during the day. Because, you know, I find, and I always say this, that these things are like the subconscious mind, man, it's powerful. It's so powerful. And it's almost like it could be insidious the way it works, to where we can be feeling our best and be doing everything we can to keep ourselves in a good place mentally, physically, emotionally. And then you know, it's like this stuff is doing push-ups, you know, those negative ones are waiting in the wings. They're like in the dark and they're getting stronger, and they wait for like the most opportune time, the best opportunity to come and get you, right? Where you're not expecting it or where you're not on guard. And that's what I find is that, you know, those things can creep right in. And if I don't catch it right away, they start to control my mood, my energy, how I feel, and what I do. Like they'll take over my whole day and my life if I don't catch them when they come in. So it's really just kind of practicing that, you know, mental and emotional awareness. You know, and the things like, why am I talking about thoughts and beliefs and everything? Well, how does that relate to pain? Because, you know, especially now more than ever, I mean, this happens, period, but especially now where stress is on the rise because of this whole pandemic that's hit. We have more uncertainty. We don't know from one week to the next if we're going to be still sheltered in, or what we're going to be allowed to do, or what they're going to be cracking down on. And all that uncertainty just increases the stress that we go through, right? When we cannot predict what's going on, we tend to feel more uncertainty, and uncertainty leads to stress. And the more stress that we feel, the more sensitive that we can become to pain, the more sensitive we become to kind of, you know, things like depression and frustration and overwhelm or fear or worry, right? All those negative thoughts and emotions that come. So you could see like this is all linked in, where one links to the other, you know, and then the more pain that we're in, the more stress we can feel anyway. Good morning, Larry. Thanks for tuning in. Good to see you. So those are a couple things there, you know, and really it's not like about having to get rid of any negative emotions, right? So that's one thing that I don't do. If I notice that I'm stuck in some negative thing, if I'm like upset about something, if I'm worried about something, I won't think that like, okay, this is bad and I need to make it go away, or I need to repress it or avoid it. And I think that a lot of times, like we're trying to do things to get rid of when we don't feel good, when we're thinking, you know, quote unquote bad things. Like we're conditioned to think this is bad and we shouldn't feel this way. And while I don't want to stay stuck in it, I don't push it away at the same time, because I think when we like try to repress ourselves, like what, you know, negative thoughts and emotions, they don't go away. Like we could try to push them away and keep them out and not think about them, but it's like what I was saying earlier, that they grow stronger over time and they're still there. We may not realize they're there, but they are. And what happens is that when they stay there, the longer that they stay there, the more likely down the road they're going to find a way to express themselves within us in ways that are more destructive to us. because they get stronger. And when they come out and we're not giving them an outlet, we're not acknowledging them, we're not allowing ourselves to feel and process it, they will find a way. And it's usually a more kind of, say destructive way, but they do have ways of showing up that really do more harm than good to us, especially the longer that we try to push them away. So those are just some of the things, right? So, directing the first thoughts of the day, practicing mental and emotional awareness, and like I was saying earlier, like knowing the difference, especially with pain, if it's a physical or if it's being driven physically or if it's being driven mentally and emotionally. Those are kind of the big things. Because again, these are just kind of ways to increase awareness about what's going on. And when we have awareness, then we have the power to change things. But we can't change anything that we're not aware of. And if we're not aware of why we're feeling stressed out, not just that we feel stressed, it's too vague, but to really understand the cause behind it. What's driving it? Why are we in pain all the time? If we physically don't feel good, if we're stiff and we're tight all the time, or we're aching and we constantly feel like that, like why it's there. Getting to the causes creates the awareness that we need to be able to change it. And that's kind of the thing, the purpose that I have in doing stuff like this is to help anybody to be able to change that stuff, because, I don't believe that we were put here to just be another statistic and be one of the 50 million people suffering and struggling with pain every single day, who are stressed out and burned out and exhausted and wiped out every day of our lives, struggling and suffering with this stuff. I don't believe we were put here to do that. And there definitely is a way out, but we're never going to find a way out if we're sitting there trying to manage the symptoms all the time without getting to the root cause and tackling that. If we can get to the root cause, the symptoms tend to resolve themselves. Hey, Annie, how you doing? Good to see you. So that's all I got for today, you guys. I hope that helped in some way. And again, if you are struggling with this stuff, if you are now more than ever noticing that you are dealing with more symptoms of pain, if you're struggling with that, and you have tried everything, if you are doing things like stretching and icing and massaging and putting sports creams or pain medications or things, and they're not working, chances are, well, they're not working because there is the root cause hasn't been identified and eliminated yet, right? So if you're stuck trying to manage symptoms and things aren't getting better, then feel free, comment below, let me know, or private message me. I'm here to help. That's what I do. I've been doing that 20 years and I'm here to help. So anyway, that's all I got for today. So I hope that helps. I hope you guys have an awesome day. Stay strong, and I will be talking to you soon. Take care, you guys.